So as you're logging in, I'd just like to welcome everyone to New Perspectives that is being hosted by Auroville University in Surat, India, as well as Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Centers in Surat and here in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. I'm Radhe. I'm the director in Fountain Inn, and I'm joined by Dr. Vladimir Yatsenko, director of our Institute of Applied Research and Integral Studies. So before formally opening this session, can we please have a few moments of silence? Thank you. So we continue our journey on transformation of the body from a psychological perspective. Last week, Dr. Alok Pandey opened the series with a discussion on the role of the psychic in the process of physical transformation. And today, Manoj will speak on psychic and spiritual experiences in Auroville. Of course, it's always such an honor and a privilege to host Manoj on New Perspectives, and we would like to welcome you, Manoj. And in 1995, he joined Auroville to explore integral yoga and collective evolution. In Auroville, he is actively involved in higher education, software development, and filmmaking. Manoj says that to live in Auroville is to be churned in an energy field of new consciousness, drawing people into its vortex of collective transformation. This movement, he says, is beautifully captured in the movement of the galaxy, the very physical form of the envisioned city in the making. The anchor point of this churning is the Matra Mandir, the axis mundi, holding profound peace and stillness, upholding the descending light and force of transformation. To be an Aurovillian, Manoj says, is to surrender to this process and let Auroville build you into something you cannot imagine. The churning shapes your inner chamber and forms the crystal within, where you learn to receive the descending column of light, the inner axis mundi of transformation. So with this powerful description of life in Auroville, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speaker. And as always, please post any questions you may have for Manoj in the Q&A box, as there will be time towards the end to take these questions. And at this time, Manoj, please, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Radhe. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you, everyone, for joining for this sharing. And when I wanted to look at what I can share today, one powerful image came to my mind. It is from a pioneer Aurovillian who was there in Auroville, the early construction stages of Matra Mandir. His name was Ruud Lohman, and he wrote a book called House for the Third Millennium. It's about Matra Mandir. And he was in the thick of it, building Matra Mandir, physically, materially, engaged in its construction. And during that period, he says he made a discovery. And that is something very central to what I want to share today. And I resonated so deeply with what he wrote in that little book, essays. I want to read it out for you now. He writes, previously, when a critical situation arose in Auroville, one had a tendency, at least I did, to jump down off the structure and toss my little weight into the fray. Jump down off the structure, he's referring to the Matra Mandir ramp construction work was going on. He was in the middle of it. So one had the tendency to jump down off the structure and toss my little weight into the fray. But when Matrimandir is seen as the reflection, the perfect image of everything that is happening around it, one discovers that it is much more effective to throw one's weight more intensely into the work and make the link that is missing in Matrimandir and therefore in Auroville. Give the construction a push here or there, and things around you in Auroville also get a push. In that respect, the ramps are very critical and important. The ramp that connects us to the inner chamber that he's referring to. In that respect, the ramps are very critical and important, it seems. They consist in their present naked state. At that time, it was all exposed. You can see all the frame, the triangulation of the structure that was building up. They consist in their present naked state of an intricate system of pipes, all welded together. And only a computer can say how much tension there is in the structure of the ramp. Each node, each connection, and there are hundreds of them, has its own type of stresses and its own tension. That is why we now have to test the strength of the entire ramp for all those various stresses and tension have to work in unison, in unity. And there is a picture of Auroville again. Stresses and tensions, all working as one beautiful whole, balancing each other out, keeping each other in place, and all together forming a bridge towards the inner chamber, the soul. I found that image incredibly beautiful and describes the life in Auroville, the transformative process that is happening in Auroville, the collective yoga that is unfolding in Auroville, like a ramp getting built to the inner chamber, composed of hundreds of those intricate connections with tensions and stress. You know, a physical structure is composed of compression and tension at a material level. And all of them hang together as an integral whole and build the structure. So in a collectively, in Auroville, we have this continuous churning, whereas the stresses and tension between people grinding onto each other. And all of them hang together as a whole, holding everyone in the right place. And each one has their own corresponding stress, tension, all that. And the totality is held together, and that is building that ramp to the chamber, to the crystal. It resonated so deeply with me. When you live here, when you dive deeper into the journey of transformation, inevitably you come across these enormous tensions that create that structure that is rising up. Surprisingly, when we come to Auroville, first time, I remember when I came first time, I got down in a nearby village called Bomayapalayam, and I was walking down the road. I did not know how far Auroville is, and I was just walking down. And then I saw one house, and it had such a beauty in its form. Immediately, I knew this is Auroville. It belongs to Auroville. The sheer physical beauty that we can see in Auroville. We know that beauty is the presence of the divine in the physical. And that's first thing that strikes when we come to Auroville, sheer physical beauty of the place. When I saw that, I knew this is Auroville. And soon there was a bullock cart coming. They asked me, would you like to come? And this was in 94 December, my first visit. I said, yeah, wonderful. So I got into the bullock cart and they took me halfway. And then they said, now you get down and go this way. That was Auroville turning. So I was touched by the generosity, which is another quality of the soul, of the very surrounding villages, people. The seekers are coming to the city and they are so happy to come. We'll take you there. And I was walking down further, the road that was pointed at. Another man stopped. He was on a scooter. Someone from Europe. And he asked me, are you going to Auroville? He said, yes, come. So I got another lift and he took me to his house, gave me breakfast, gave me the map of Auroville and explained where to stay, how to find places, where to go. Another example of that beautiful generosity that spontaneously come your way. And that welcome was so touching. When I reached Auroville, when I saw the Matra Mandir, walked around, I felt this is home. I did not know a single person in Auroville, but it was my home. I knew I belonged to that place. And it was so clear, there was no doubt. So I immediately checked out various processes about joining, what is the process, how much it is going to cost. Then I realized that it was expensive and I had no money. At that time, I used to live in an ashram. Not Pondicherry ashram, but in Nilgiris, in a small ashram. That was my transit camp before coming to Auroville. And I had no money. Whatever I had given away. So I went back to the ashram and I did not know how to now proceed. And Auroville is calling. My home is there. And in a few days, I woke up from a powerful dream in which I met Sri Aurobindo. It was like, he was like a grandfather, very sweet and almost naughty. I was like a little child playing. Then he suddenly showed how to climb a steep, rocky mountain with a little rope in his hand, and he was rapidly climbing up. And I was scared. And I was screaming, no, 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 no. But there was such a sweet smile on his face. And there were many more incidents in that. And he asked me to come. When I woke up, Then only I realized it was a dream. And I burst into tears. And I cried and cried and cried. I couldn't stop crying. And I knew I can go. He showed me obstacles, all that can be easily crossed over. You just come. So I immediately said goodbye to the ashram and set off. And I had to go home to my parents. And I was in a bus. And I felt his force. The bus was being carried or driven by his force. And the landscape, everything was him. And I felt so safe, so joyful, so carried. There was nothing to fear. He is the one who is taking you forward. And at home, again, it took me some time to gather some money and come to Auroville. And so in 95, I came May 10th, got down in Pondicherry, bought a cycle, and came home. I did not know a single person, but this is home. This is home. And you could feel it in your very body, your soul, your body. You breathe in that atmosphere. And I remember early days, when you come from Kuilapalayam, when you cross the current Tanto area towards Auroville, you can almost feel the crossing into the atmosphere of Auroville, the very physical atmosphere, the energy field. And things worked out so smoothly. I started working within a week. And that's when my sadhana became more and more conscious, how to dedicate, how to offer myself more and more completely. And of course, human mind has this tendency to read everything from its own limited perspectives. So I'm coming from a designer background, a trained professional designer. So I was looking at various things when I got work as a designer, designing some brochures and things like that. So I knew, okay, these things are wrong, these things are wrong, and I can do it this way, that way. And soon, within 1 or 2 years, I got into the normal surface noise of Auroville, where there is a lot of harsh criticism on everything. And so I was also into criticizing things. So this is not right, that is not right. And I'm an expert, I can fix things. At least your mind has that kind of notions. And it took me quite some time to realize that one doesn't know what Auroville is. I was projecting my little mental projections onto Auroville and trying to fit Auroville into it. And in fact, Auroville was building me, dismantling all my little mental constructions and showing, come this way, come that way. And I still had very, or rather, traditional notions about sadhana. And even though I was reading Sri Aurobindo's Synthesis of Yoga since 1989 on a regular basis, I was not yet there for karma yoga. I was still thinking I should meditate. I should take time off from work and meditate. That's how you progress. So the work was something separate. And this inner journey was separate. And some of the seniors told me, no, this is not a place for such withdrawal. This is a place of karma yoga. And in fact, I had even planned a year off after 2 years in Auroville, I thought, now 1 year I want to take off and concentrate. And there is this beauty of Auroville. One thing is what you wanted to do, but Auroville works out the circumstances in such a way that I ended up doing that whole year designing and building Upasana design studio. Whole construction, I became contractor, architect, site supervisor, everything. And very materially engaging with things. And slowly I learned, I know nothing about Karma Yoga actually. I had mental notions. And also, Sri Aurobindo is referring to mother's force. Though, when I felt Sri Aurobindo was carrying me to Auroville, I could feel that force, the carrying. But once you get into life and its mundane details, you forget all that. But one thing I was regularly doing was I was going to Matra Mandir. That was the anchor point. Daily, morning, evening, concentrate, learn to open, silence the mind. And I was far from coming in touch with the body. I did not even know. I was largely living in the mind. And I did not even know that I was living in the mind. I was hardly in touch with the body. Then slowly that process too began. It's like when you sit now and try to access your little toe on the right foot, sensationally. You can see that it is somewhat like a Siberia somewhere out there, and it takes you time to reach there to really feel distinctly that little toe separate from the rest of the feet. So in the meditation or the inner journey, one thing I noticed is while you're going inside, you can either go into the deeper silence or you can go into the body. You step out of the thoughts and all the way to the sensations. And beyond the sensations, there is this density of the body. And I noticed the body is so dull and inaccessible, so unconscious. And that's also time. Like Auroville has this energy field that throws out everything that is to be worked on. It pulls out from you everything that needs to be worked on. The field is such. It churns. It churns and brings out. And one of the first things that came out early on is asthma. As a child, I had asthma. And later, when I left home, asthma left me. And when I came back home here, spiritual home, soon asthma broke out. And during childhood, I had gone through very heavy medication, and I did not, allopathic meditation, and I did not want to go there. Fortunately, I found someone who gave me a leaf called Telephora asthmatica, and it helped me to a great extent. And it healed me, and I went all the way climbing Himalaya. I went 3 times, climbed 5,500 meters to feel in your body that you can do that. And I was more and more coming in touch with the body and becoming aware of the body. I was never a sports person because during childhood, I was always an asthmatic and also way too thin. So everyone will come, what happened to you? Why are you so thin? And you grow ashamed of your own body and that sense of weakness in the body, sense of shame about your body. And I was encountering all that I don't own up my own body. do I really love my body? Face it. Can I walk without shirt in public? I never did such things. So to me, because it was things I never did, these things became little ways of breaking out of that shame, guilt about the body. And this is what I am. This is my body. And it has climbed the Himalayas. Then I also stretched it further. I did marathon. I ran 21 kilometers. So it gave me much more confidence in the body. Meanwhile, asthma was again hitting back. And one healer helped me. And that's when I understood how the body stores up. Body is a huge storehouse of memories, emotions. So first thing she did was ask me to lie down. And she was just observing for 30 minutes, just observing my breath. And later there was a whole process where one thing she did was a deep tissue massage with a single finger at the bottom of the lower back. And every movement left a kind of swelling in the body. And there was that whole lower back was swelled up as a result of that deep tissue massage. And she told me, watch out today. There will be some upsurge. And soon I felt this overwhelming emotions coming from my childhood and relationship with father, and issues and all that. It was really so demanding. I went to the ashram, sat in the samadhi for things to settle down. And it did. And with that, asthma was really fading away at a deeper level. So I understood the body is holding so much in it. So I started working more and more on the body. But then I realized, no, you can work from the mental plan or a vital push. It has its place, but very, very limited in its possibility of transforming the body. That's when increasingly also the opening was happening upwardly. And the connection with that descending force, I could sense how that is coming in and allowing that to percolate into the body, moving into the body, and then to see how that can become physical movement. So all this is happening as parallelly on one side, there is external work happening. I was into various things. I was developing websites, developing other software, architecture, then got into filmmaking, various things. But parallelly was a deep dive into karma yoga, what it means to be moved by that force. How do you surrender to that force and progressively eliminate the mental will as well as the vital impulse and let the force work its way through. And close observation of what the body is doing. And what hit me hard was encountering the mechanicalness of daily physical movements. What appears to be a very active physical life is practically run like a machine. Habit after habit after habit. Everything is running in an autopilot. And there are these moments of clearing where you see, now this is conscious. And then you slip back into the machine. Conscious, back to the machine. That process became very, very clear. And always Matrumandir is there as an anchor point. So going there, opening to that force, receiving that into the body, bringing it and applying it in daily life activities, whether it is cooking or just closing of the door. Because we close the door every day and these things are so automated, a conscious presence is not required. Because the body does all this lock. Everything is happening in perfect automation. And to be consciously present in that entire process and to see the machine at work and to see that as the body became more and more conscious as a result of the force that is entering into it, opening up the lower ranges and the subconscious and its resistances showing up. And the body become more like a bundle of vibrations. And the surrounding larger life, the collective life, is pouring into the body. And the body is pouring out, or there is a certain field around the body. And there is a constant exchange. And the vital exchange becomes very clear. And the mind field is constantly pulsating. Things are entering, going, vital forces entering, going. And the verticality of the body, where the pulsations, where the vibrations are entering, what is clogging where, this became the reference point. So I started using less and less the mind to know what is happening, which anyway, mind has its own interpretations. Whereas when it comes to the body, you cannot interpret. It is direct vibrational dynamic reality. Either it is doing things mechanically or it is doing consciously. Even within that conscious movement, either it is harmonious or disharmonious. You're clumsy or you are precise. Things become very, very, very vivid. And the whole process of how the cognition and action are woven into each other. Even I could see I am coming down the staircase to the kitchen with a specific intention. Coming down, on the way, eyes are falling onto something that triggers another memory and triggers another action. So your first action is cancelled and you turn to do something else. And on the way to that second action, you see another memory popping up. You shift into third one. You complete that, you come back to the second and go back to the first. And this whole automation of trigger, there is this perception and there is this action done by the body. And you're observing all that and enjoying all that, not interfering into all that, and to see a larger harmony arising. Then you also see the relationship between your cognitive process and your dynamic physical becoming, your activities. As in Sanskrit, you say, yadha drishti tadha srishti. Your self-image itself, or your clarity of your vision of the moment or of the week, of the month, of the life, how that is translated into your daily life, little activities. And I began to understand it is in that little sphere, whatever be the little area of work, what is given to you by the divine, that's where your process of transformation is. And there is, of course, the larger collective, which is going through its own churning, but your little space become a mirror reflection of that. And when you deep dive into that and engage with that detail, and you start seeing the clumsiness, the unconsciousness, the imperfections, the lack of progress, and the enormous resistance of the subconscient, the habits that stand on the way, that refuse to change, habits coming from the childhood, the bodily habits standing on the way, refusing to change. Then you see the same thing at a larger collective level. And in Auroville, when you start engaging at a scale that is beyond your personal work, a little area of work, something that is collective, that's when you encounter the collective resistance, enormous resistance, stubborn resistance to change. And it doesn't belong to anyone in particular. And it is something collective. And I remember when Aurovillian wrote long ago, we are like mother's donkeys, confronting an enormous wall of resistance. And we are just braying like donkeys. And we don't give up. The wall will come down one day, but we will not give up. And when you start doing something at a collective level and try to, say, bring a larger number of people, a group of people to get things done, that's when you encounter the resistances, the mental cobweb of perceptions, emotions, and things get entangled and nothing moves. Nothing moves. And I see that excellence of Auroville is where there are enormous individual freedom, and there is islands of excellence where individuals have pioneered works and they had that freedom to do. There is incredible diversity of amazing things happening. But when we try to come together into a larger collective whole, the larger will of the collective, we encounter the resistance, the collective unconscious, the collective shadow. And you see that it is reflecting in your own personal journey. Your own shadow shows up to be encountered. And you see that what is triggering you, looking at someone else's flaws, which are obvious to you, very visible, raw and naked, but you don't see it in yourself. And that is triggering you. You see that, you step back. Here it is in me. And I see what are the forces that are rising and expressing through you. And I saw that the word, the spoken word, playing a central role. The body, on one hand, is Shariram Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. Here is the entity with which we are working, engaging with life, and it is through that the speech is happening. And the speech is arising from where? And can you access a deeper source? Is it a vital reaction, a mental construction, a physical habit, or something deeper? Or when you go still deeper, you begin to taste the elemental compositions of speech, the fiery, burning word, or the earthy, heavy, or airy. And you also see that a single shift in your tonality can trigger things out of proportion, particularly when you are in close relationships. The shadow gets much more intensified, where the speech, the automation in speech, the forces that are acting through you are triggering ripples of effect. The invocation or provocation, the huge difference. How do you invoke? And you cannot invoke unless you have invoked that within you, a deeper presence. So everything falls back to that inner work. That where is that inner crystal? Where is that sacred chamber within you? And body become that temple where this has to be invoked, established, held. A sacred space. So what appeared as a Matrimandir out there gradually become your inner reality. There is this quiet descending force. And it takes on layer by layer. It works on the mind, brings increasing silence. It works on the vital, brings increasing peace. And it works all the way to the physical, bringing deep stillness. And as the clearing deepens, that's when the intimations from within, the perfume from within, become more and more tangible. Then you see that even when someone is far away, thousands of kilometers away, when you have a psychic contact, you can practically experience the fragrance of the soul, real flowers fragrance. And then you see that your very body is like a container, and it can connect far and wide. And depending upon what is invoked and held, it has its ripple effect. Not necessarily in your doing part, it self-organizes. It brings things to be done. And you know that you are not the one who is doing it, it is happening. It is unfolding naturally. And body become that sacred temple where you see that there are times when you have the earthquake and storms and everything is swept off. And you come back, regain the poise. And in collective work, it becomes far and more demanding because there is this intensity of the shadow, light and shadow, because each person has come with their own light as well as the shadow to be transformed. As Mother spoke in the vital education, everyone has the light and the shadow. And in the character development, these two, the shadow part has to be transformed. And it naturally happens here when we go deep into that inner space. And you see that every little detail of the body, the food it eats, how it is sleeping, the daily habits, the routines, this is that 24-hour, if you can get that design right, your inner invocation is right. You're establishing a presence. That's the work. And it has its corresponding ripples and consequences manifesting as work that is happening outside. But the main work is here. And it is in the small details of everyday life where you realize all life is yoga. Every little detail of yoga. How you open an envelope, how you start your bike. Now, all these are moments where you can put conscious attention, loving care with that force that moves you. And increasingly learning to surrender the body and its movements. And body start guiding purely through the vibrations that are visible in this framework of the body. Different types of vibrations. And all the way to that deep sweetness and flowery fragrance and perfume of the soul. So, Auroville does this in an unstructured way, in a very organic way. When you open to Auroville, Auroville builds you into something that you cannot imagine. And surrendering to that is the greatest joy. And whatever little work that is there in front is the whole world in itself. You are the construction ground. You are the field of transformation. And this is where all that is entering undergoes a transformation. And the field is prepared within you. It's like a new being. You're being reborn into something else. So that possibility is open. And it's not our doing. And only a deep surrender is what we can do. A sincere, complete self-giving to the force. And it will lead. And a state of not knowing and with full of joy. And with that, I would like to invite any questions, sharings.
Thank you, Manoj, for this meditative and very inspiring talk that real transformation can take place after all. It's not some kind of fairy tale or thinking or meditating only. One can live it. One can be engaged in it every day, every moment, and it becomes an interesting journey, an inspiring journey for us as human beings here. There is one question here. I will read it out for others to see also. I am suffering a lot because of the discord with my foster child. I began my sadhana 7 months ago, but the turmoil that I'm going through right now isn't allowing me to focus. I'm breaking down every single day. Please help as to how can I detach myself from the turmoil and focus on sadhana.
What I have learned is that everything that is happening in life is happening for a reason. And there is a lesson to learn. And often we are resisting that learning. And we are fighting with life. A continuous resistance to life and its processes. And the divine then crushes the more we resist. As the material, so the treatment will be. So we need to look at where am I resisting? What am I resisting? That resistance is the cause of suffering. And the deeper we can look at that resistance, even if it is in a relationship with someone, I am resisting that person. And what is behind that resistance? Can I dive into that resistance? What am I afraid of? Where is it rooted within me? What is the sensation in the body? Because everything has a corresponding sensation. Going into that sensation, opening that space up to the light, offering it, surrendering it, And I have always found whenever there is this suffering happening, I was resisting. Resisting people, resisting life, resisting situations. Because mind has certain ideas and they don't necessarily match. So as the mind becomes increasingly open, heart becomes open, the resistance also fades. It is in that process the breakthrough happens, release happens, transformation happens. At least this is my learning is, and I guess each one of us has to learn in our own way of grinding by the divine hands, the potter's wheel, we are on that. The clay is getting kneaded. So to see that everything is by the divine and we exist in the divine and action is happening by the divine. And to see where am I resisting? Can I be supple? Can I be open? Can I surrender? That has helped me always to relax.
Thank you. There are more questions. How does one overcome recurrent resistance? Well, maybe you were answering it already partially. But which is coming back again and again. That means most probably you have to continue doing this, diving deeper.
Yeah, it won't go. For example, we can use mental will to work against a habit, a resistance, open it up. But the moment you remove the mental will, the resistance is back. It is only when the psychic influence enters or the higher force enters, the transformation can happen. Without transformation, the resistance can be pushed away on a temporary basis, but it will come back. So the real dissolution happens when the force enters and enter deep into the subconscious and open that up. And in that process, there is almost miraculous dissolving of difficulties that you had been fighting for years otherwise. So the key is, how are you facing the resistance? Is it with mental will, mental constructions, or a vital pull and push, or opening to the psychic, or the higher force descending?
Thank you. Actually, Mother also mentions this in her discussion with disciples who were kind of offering their resistance, their obstacles to her, and Mother removed them with her grace. But then she says they are calling it back because something in their nature is not worked out, and they feel at loss when they don't have that resistance, because that resistance became part of their identity in a way. They recognize themselves with that struggle, that is who they are. So they need it back. They need that fight. It's quite interesting. It's very psychological in a way. Some part of ourselves wants it back.
Yeah.
And that's...
Also, one more thing is, often there is a secret indulgence in a hidden, almost perverse delight. It's deep inside. Outwardly, it looks like, no, I sincerely want, but there is another part of the being who is very happy with it and hold on to it. Unless that part is brought forth, hey, let it go, this is not needed. And that exposure, that revealing, often mind cannot do that. It is that deep sincerity. When we really offer with that deep sincerity, things get really exposed. Am I clinging to my resistance, my problems, for some deeper indulgence?
Yeah. So there is another question. I'm struggling with how to surrender. Am I overthinking? Is there a mindfulness practice that you can suggest?
Yeah, this very, though it has a place in the mental process of how to surrender, and itself made into a doing part. No, I am doing the surrender. That itself become an obstacle. It's like first is just learning to relax, completely relaxing. And not at a mental level, starting with just physical relaxation. Let the body learn to relax, because the muscles are holding on to many contractions. And just observe the surrender as a sensation, not as an idea. And the more you go deep into the body, you'll see that there are hidden parts of the body, little muscles holding on and then relaxing. And it is a sensation, very clear sensation. So if you can distinguish that sensation in the body of relaxing, and it envelops the entire body, and then the mind falls silent. There is no question. There is no how to. You're just relaxing and surrendering. You can say into a warm pool of sweetness. And yeah, we need to develop the faith that everything is nothing but the divine. The whole existence is nothing but that. Ishavasyam idam sarva. Then we can surrender into that vast pool of existence in which it is embracing you. It is embracing you from all sides. There is nothing else other than that. So find that sensation and dissolve into that ocean of being.
It's interesting. Your answers are anticipating the questions which are coming. So we have, is the depression a form of resistance? From where does it come? The vital, mental, or body? How to start process of change? That's exactly what you were answering so nicely, but you can add to it, please. And there is
go
ahead.
A question about passion.
No, depression.
Oh, depression. Yeah.
Is it a form of resistance? Yeah.
I would say there are two different types of depression. One, depression is part of the vital drama, that the vital ego or the mental ego is not getting what it wants. Then it sits and sulks and go inward, and you collapse inward. And it bounces back very fast. And it's a rapid cycle, very short-lived depressions. Then there is chronic depressions. Often this is, rather, the deeper causes, you are increasingly out of touch with your soul. And unless you come in touch with that, this cannot be cured. Or curing probably is not the right word. It is, you're cut off from the source of life itself, life and light. And it can take you towards a complete failure in outward life, relationships, everything, and pushes you inward. And there, the real inner work is required to open up and also change the habit, because behind depression, there is habitual thought pattern, habitual emotional pattern, habitual sensations, and older memories and a false self-image. I'm not good enough, or self-image is I'm unworthy, I'm a failure, and all that gets formed probably from the very childhood. So you need to unearth all that, erase all that to recover the light that you are. So we need to distinguish this rapid cycles of shorter depressions that are more of a part of drama, emotional, vital drama, part of the vital, the acute egoism, to the other one, which is much serious, which need to be listened to at a deeper level. and healed at a deeper level.
Thank you. Can you speak a little more about the dissolution of the vital and mental will? Actually, you anticipate the questions.
Yeah, before dissolving, first is to form the will. The thinking and dynamic will, the ajna itself, is not often well formed. The power of concentration is not well formed. The premature surrender will make you fall into either the vital impulses or into the inertia of the physical. So it's very important to purify the buddhi, the intelligent will, and direct life, bring the vital and physical under its supervision, and establish certain discipline and certain mastery. And it is then when the intelligent will is able to discern the presence of the force or the psychic influence and vigilantly surrender only to that and nothing else, then gradually the mental will can be dissolved and the vital can be transformed. Otherwise, we have this danger of falling back into regression of the vital and its free play. And often in the name of spontaneity, we do that, and that's an error, or falling into the tamasic space. So first, form the excellent, purified buddhi, intelligent will, which is our most developed instrument. And in the yoga of self-perfection, Sri Aurobindo picks this up. This is the key tool, key faculty to be purified from the grip of the vital, grip of the physical, and so that it can stand on its own and govern the vital and physical. Then it has to discern the deeper call of the psychic or open upward. Then it can be dissolved. It is ready for dissolution.
Thank you. And there is the last question. Where can one find a guide for everyday work?
Inside. That is the place to go. The Veda secret is inside. And if one is not sufficiently sure about one's own inner discernment, one can always look outside in someone whom you have a deep, spontaneous faith and use that as a reference. And eventually, in long term, always come to that inner guide who is there moment to moment to guide. There is no way out of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this beautiful discourse and vision and sharing of your experience and your journey. This was very enlightening. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Manoj. Very wonderful, and really don't want to disturb the beautiful environment that you've created here through your energy and your wisdom and your thoughts. But I did just want to mention to everyone that we are changing to daylight savings time here tonight. And so starting next Saturday, if you're anywhere but in India, we are going to be performing or offering here the new perspectives an hour later. So in the U.S. and New York time, it'll be 10 o'clock. And on the West Coast, it'll be 7 o'clock instead of 6. So we'll continue next week. And again, Manoj, we're very grateful for your offering today for us and for the attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.